Jackety Jake!
Hello and welcome to the Wimborne History Festival, a weekend of thrilling reenactments, skirmishes, battles, glimpses into the domestic past of Wimborne. Join us over the next 30 minutes as we discover the secret sites and the heritage of this great town.
After almost 2,000 years, the Romans will be back in Wimborne Minster. The Roman legions will converge on the site of Vespasian Fort, here at Lake Gate, just outside the town. You will see battles, weapon practice, and heckling at the slave market. As well as storytelling, craft activity, and you'll visit the many stores on the festival site. I do hope you all enjoy this exciting new History Festival weekend. So I have great pleasure in opening the Wimborne Festival weekend.
A varied programme of talks, events around the town at venues such as the Priest's House Museum, Dean's Court and the East Dorset Heritage Trust at Allendale House, and work with local schools, culminated in a weekend of reenactments and demonstrations on the special festival site at Lake Gates. This film documents some of the highlights.
Yes, I've got a knife made from stone here, green sand silicate, which is very similar to flint. So if you hit it with a tool, you can break sharp flakes off it. So this has been shaped with antler tools initially to make the knife shape. It's been made nice and thin, so it cuts well. It's been set into a wooden handle with Stone Age glue made from pine resin mixed with charcoal. And over use it's been made dull, the edge has gone dull, so I'm just resharpening it with a technique called pressure flaking, which involves applying pressure to the edge of the stone knife with, in this case, a piece of deer antler. It could be a piece of bone. If you've moved into the Copper Age and the Bronze Age, people are still using flint and stone tools a lot, then you can use copper-tipped pressure flakers, which work in the same way.
Moving forward to the Bronze Age.
So we have a furnace made of clay and sand and grass to hold it together, and inside there is a crucible with which we put some bits of bronze in, scrap bronze, and the scrap bronze will eventually melt in this furnace at about 1100 degrees centigrade. And when it's liquid, we'll then be able to pour it into a mould and hopefully get something nice out of that. So it's fueled by charcoal and then pumping air into it from underneath, and that heats up very hot very quickly if you get it right, and can get it from cold and dry to about 1000 degrees in about an hour or less.
Without metal, we wouldn't have coins, of course.
When you take it out, thanks so much.
There you go.
I'm a stone conservator and I'm with the Wimborne Militia today, and we're doing a 17th century camp, and I am carving the Wimborne coat of arms.
What skill that is to actually...
Yeah, well it's like all crafts, there is a definite way of doing things. So
yeah, he literally clipped it around the cross.
I thought they would just have sort of stole a bit back.
Food production has been of vital importance throughout the ages, and the use of stone grind wheels continued until the 20th century. Having a go makes it real. Clothing and cloth production was another constant through the ages.
So this is tablet weaving. Tablet weaving was used, dates back quite far in history. The Vikings specifically used it on their dresses. The threads are threaded through each of the cards. When you turn the cards, it changes the shed in between the cards. So you can pick up each of them in here. Changes the shed in between. You put the weft through, which weft goes through with a pick. You beat it down, and that makes a pattern going through. And each time you turn the cards, it changes the pattern through.
My name's Luke Winter. I'm the manager of the Ancient Technology Centre in Cranbourne, and Paul and I are here today to do some medieval sword fighting displays. We're not reenactors, we're experimental archaeologists, and what we've been doing over the last 6 years is reconstructing actual moves from the medieval period based on fight books which have survived the ravages of time. Only imagine that these people, as they trained, proper sort of training, they must have been scarred. I mean, they must have literally...
Even the practice swords.
Even with blunts, we've had, we haven't actually broken fingers, but we've had really painful injuries. Paul's had a sword in his eye, even with blunts. So, I mean, if they were sharps, and they were definitely practicing with sharps at times, then we would be scarred.
People could be killed.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Last one. That's good.
Refreshments were on offer and appreciated. This vintage Bedford bus ferried people between the site and the town. The location of Allendale House.
Hi, I'm Don Johnston. I've been involved with the Wimborne railway layout since 2003, and that was when it was resurrected from being on a shelf. The original layout was started in 1985. By 2011 we decided it was past its sell-by date in the state it was in, and we completely started a rebuild from 2011, and it is now in virtually a complete form and as accurate as we can get it in the space that we had available. The actual station building and the associated track work is accurate as far as the layout is concerned, but at the Westmoors end of the layout it's been foreshortened slightly, and at both ends it's had to be curved round more sharply from Lye Road through to the River Bridge. The actual station area itself is pretty much as accurate as we can get it, apart from the goods shed, which is slightly out of position because of the joints in the baseboard.
Dean's Court is also in the very heart of Wimborne, although hidden from view.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Please come on in, follow me, and take a seat in the dining room. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Dean's Court. I'm going to assume that you know nothing about local history by giving a little bit of context and background to Dean's Court, because it does dovetail into the local history, particularly the ancient history of Wimborne. I expect a lot of you will have gathered that Wimborne is a very ancient and was at once a very important place indeed. We've now moved into the oldest part of the house, which is what was, I should say, a two-roomed, very typical two-roomed house, which usually is just called a hall house. And it consisted of one larger room, which is the one we're in, and a solar, which was effectively the entrance hall. And that would often be the place where, if you were coming round for an appointment to see the abbess or the dean, you would be kept waiting in there until they were ready to see you. But that was my father here, who's Michael, whose portrait hangs there, and my mother, Jane, on the left there. So my father arrived in my mother arrived in 1974 and found a house that had no work done to it since the early 1930s. And there were literally holes in the roof, there was water pouring in, there was of course no heating, there was no plumbing, there was virtually no electricity, there were still gas lights, and nothing had been changed really since 1930. So it was a complete sort of, it was a time, whatever you call it, time capsule. But they set about rolling up their sleeves and doing what they could to repair the house. The problem is, instead of having money to do it, they actually had a double death duties tax bill, and so there was absolutely no money to do anything with. But luckily my father was very practical, so he he put in the wiring for the house, he put in plumbing, he ripped out some of the old gas lights, and started doing repairs and trying to save this house. And it was only really because the early 1980s the property boom started in Wimborne that they were able to sell a few valuable properties and pay this wretched tax bill, which meant that they were able to stay here, which was wonderful.
The Priest's House Museum is housed in another ancient building in the town centre.
Hello, my name is Livia. I'm here today looking at some Roman food. We're having people through and we're testing some of it as well. The Romans liked cheese, so we've got some cheese and honey buns here, cooked on bay leaves and then sprinkled with honey, very tasty. We've got some cream cheese with garlic and with herbs. We've been grinding up the peppercorns and the salt to go with the food as well. We've got a display of some of the vegetables and fruit and herbs that the Romans brought with them when they came to Britain, because we didn't have them. Don't tell the Welsh, because they brought leeks as well. Some of the fruit like medlars, which we can find down the garden in the museum as well. We've got 2 medlar trees, which people don't seem to know about. And also a display of things that the Romans didn't eat: potatoes, tomatoes. things like that came from the Americas. So they hadn't been found yet, so they didn't know about them. And so a lot of people are surprised that they didn't have tomato paste to go with their pasta, no pasta, or their pizza, no pizza. So we've had children trying it, some of them liking it, some of them not liking it. Surprising how many people don't like cheese, and they relied a lot on finger food, and cheese and bread was a very good finger food for them. We looked at how they lie down to actually eat in a triclinium, tri meaning three, so 3 benches, and so one hand would be used. And the Roman spoons here have got a pointed end, so that you'd use a spoon, no forks, you'd use the spoon end and you could easily turn it around and stab food as well and pick it up. A lot of it cut up by slaves, so you didn't have to use a knife very often, so it was there in front of you and you would eat like that. If you were rich enough to have a beautiful dining room, probably with a lovely mosaic floor underneath.
Always popular with the young. Roman soldiers.
Obviously we're here dressed as legionaries from the 1st century AD, who had been stationed here for a couple of years at least. We're dressed exactly as you would expect from 1st century AD. You'll notice straight away the difference between our armour, and that's what you would have seen all those years ago. A variety. It wasn't a case of everyone looking exactly the same as you tend to see on the TV these days. The types of armour varied. The armour evolved over the years, and certainly the armour that we're wearing you would have seen simply because they had slightly different purposes. Move on quickly from the armour. The weapons, well, we like to keep it at a distance with the pilum initially, which we'd have 2, and these are the gladius. The famous Roman short stabbing sword. Short because you have to get quite close to your opponent to use it, and the Romans, if they could, would avoid combat because obviously it's bad for your health, however, but not afraid to use it. Professional army after all. The handle, wooden or bone, would be made to fit the individual's grip. Obviously you don't want to lose your grip if you're in combat. You notice the scabbards for the swords vary in design if you look closely, so that soldiers could take their weapons that fit them individually and make sure they get the right weapon if they are in combat. As far as the Cassius goes, the helmet, again we've got 2 different types here. Essentially the same design, Gaulic design, cheek pieces, neck guard, brow guard, fitments for any of the horse hair or the feathers to go up the top. Again, there's differences.
Okay, now we come to the shield. The shield actually has the symbols of the legion that we believe was based here. That's Second Augusta. So this animal here is a Capricorn, the birth sign of the Emperor Augusta, and we know that the legion used it because they carved this on quite a few monuments in the British Isles. The other animal is the Pegasus. We do not know why the Pegasus flying horse was selected. Dividing the shield in 2 vertically is the 2 red arrows, which are believed to represent the actual thunderbolts of Jupiter. If you want to contact a person, you can see where they live, but you can't see how they live.
Like that, yes, exactly, like that. Gee, if you had like that, you'd be my boss. I'd have to call you Centurion.
More Romans back in the main arena.
Well, good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen. A Roman legionary of 2,000 years ago joined the Roman army for 25 years service. It was only the officers who were allowed to have wives and children with them. And here, in Vespasian's marching camp, as it's called, there may have been peoples from around Gaul, Spain, Syria, Egypt.
Gladius! Ringi! Tay! Rockedy! Tay! Theory! Die! Theory! Die! Petrol Worthy. Start!
Remarkably, their medical ideas seem very modern.
So this chap has come off his horse. I have men called capsaria. Capsaria translates as box or bag carrier. They're basically my field medics. He's come off his horse and the horse has trod on his leg and broken his leg. So the capsaria have placed tourniquet and splints onto the limb, fetched him to me. The first thing I do as soon as he gets on the table is give him an opiate to take the pain away. Once the opiate starts to work, we will then transfer this leg from these splints into a box. The box is made with lots of holes, so once we've finished resetting the leg, so we fix the ankle into the box, fix the box to the bench. Once it's fixed into the bench, I have 3 orderlies. One will hold the foot still, one will be at the groin and one at the shoulders. When I say pull, we extend the leg and I push the bone back into place. Once the bone is back in place, the number 2 here will move down and fix the leg into the box by bandaging above and below the knee, which anchors it into the box. At this point, we can then release it from the bench, elevate it, and then wash out the wound using lavender water. Lavender is a natural disinfectant. Once it's clean and dry, we put a couple of stitches in to hold the skin together. You're not trying to close the wound. And then you would fill the wound with honey. Honey doesn't let bacteria grow. So once it's filled with honey, you would wait and monitor the skin growing back. If the skin's growing back with no problems, that tells you the bone is growing back.
Well, this gives you an idea of who I am. So I'm an obstetrix. It was a term that was used to describe midwives in Roman times. It's a term that we often relate to doctors that deal with women that are having their babies. This is a lovely copy of a relief from Ostia that clearly shows a midwife helping a lady to have her baby sitting on a birthing chair, which is why we have reconstructed a beautiful birthing chair here. And again, they wrote about the birthing chair. It seems to have been a really common feature, and seems like a good way of having a baby in a sitting position. It's a practical way of doing it, and it's something that we've gone back to using today. I work in a modern obstetric unit, and we have birthing chairs all over the place, so they really are rather useful. The tools that I have illustrated here are from all over the Roman Empire. So we have a whole range of tools here. I'll start with these rather delightful items. These are for enemas. They used to use warm olive oil for enemas there. We've got a vaginal douche as well. They used to use that post-coitally with olive oil. Believed it prevented conception. Romans are obsessed with orifices, so we've got an anal speculum here to have a look inside. We have a rather grim set of destructive forceps. The Romans would help to remove a baby if it had died. So that was to remove a fetus if it had died. They understood that a fetus would have to come out if it was stillborn. So that's what they would use that for.
Just as today, the army needs trades.
My Roman name, my alter ego, is Julianus Valerius Guinealis, which is based on a true soldier that existed in the Second Augustan Legion. We obviously don't know anything about him, but we know such a soldier existed around the time that the Romans were in Britain. The tools that you see here, obviously, once the Legion invades a country, especially somewhere like Britannia, they have to be self-sufficient. Whatever they need to build or make, they have to do it themselves. There's no, B&Q that they can go to or anything like that to sort themselves out. So, first of all, although the soldiers are fighting soldiers in the Legion, almost all of them have a trade of some sort. Some of them might be highly skilled, some of them just sort of labourers. But, if you needed new boots, somebody's got to make the boots. If you needed shields repaired, weapons repaired, and stuff like that, people need to be able to do that as well. But when it comes to forts and defences, somebody has to be able to do that. So you will have soldiers which are surveyors that can lay out the fort on the ground, and then you have the guys that can actually build the forts themselves. So again, carpenters and people like that. So this is a sort of variety of tools. Some of them would have been carried by the soldiers themselves. Some of them would have been with the engineering baggage, if you like. So if start at this end, the saws, the small saw, this is the sort of hand saw an individual soldier would carry in his pack. just a small thing. And again, you can see it looks remarkably similar to something that you would have in your garden kit. The only difference you might notice with the Roman saws is that they cut on the backstroke, not the four-stroke. It cuts that way, not on the four-stroke like a modern saw. We're not sure why, but it does.
After the Romans, the Vikings. Chiefly remembered for fighting. Leaping forward to the English Civil War.
Wimborne was a frontline town. It was never defended. It was too difficult and open. But it sat within 10 miles of Poole, which was a major Roundhead garrison protected by the sea. So there was a lot of struggling between the two sides, and the Roundheads in Poole referred to us as the Wimborneites, who were always causing trouble and plotting and trying to attack Poole. And over at Corfmullen, there is Soldiers' Clump, where it's meant to be a tree riddled with bullets from the Civil War. There was much skirmishing around here and fighting with garrison sought supplies and recruits, so it was a constant warfare.
Be doing today here at the festival?
Today we're doing several displays. We've just done one in the town, reading the King's Commissioned Array, which is calling all the good citizens to bring food and weapons to us. In a minute we're going to be a display of the exercise of the soldiers, which we now call drill. In those days it was exercise, and they will be showing you how to use the pike and musket. There was no bayonet in those days, so the pikemen were needed not only for shock assaults, but also to defend the musketeers, which were slow to reload from cavalry attacks. And then in the afternoon, we're going to portray a small skirmish as a Royalist munitions convoy from Weymouth heads towards Oxford. And this was a frequent thing. Dorset was a huge importation point for Royalist munitions through Weymouth.
You mentioned a cannon earlier. Will you be using any cannons going off?
We will have some of our smaller pieces here today. These are what are the equivalent of the heavy machine gun of today. Robinets, falconets, but we do have for the bigger events massive great siege guns. All our guns are authentic and they are safely tested.
So with regards to like the battles, and you just mentioned safety, do you have to, this is a silly question, do you have to choreograph exactly what the soldiers do?
We have what is called a loose script, which in other words has a beginning, a middle and an end. But what goes on within there is an accurate battle with people trying to beat the enemy and to gain the advantage. It gives it that little bit of colour and excitement, otherwise it turns into a pageant.
Kneel for cannon!
That makes your ears ring, doesn't it?
Hello, my name is Alex Compiani. I am the Commander-in-Chief of the Wimborne Militia. We're part of the Dorset Militias during the reign of James II, and our purpose here is to stop the forces of the Monmouth Rebellion coming up through Dorset and making their way through to London.
To the left hand, wheel. Propel stand, stand. Open your pans. Pouring a little bit of gunpowder into the pan and the musket. Close your pans, knock off and blow off your loose. Handle your charge. What I want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, is while they're doing all this, there's usually an enemy, quite possibly cavalry, bearing down on them. Give fire! All guns, make ready! Quick as you can, gentlemen. And ladies, you may notice. Mr. Christopher, light fuse. All guns, prepare to give fire. Give fire!
From the Stone Age to the coming of the railways,
These are the gladius.
via Romans, Vikings, medieval abbesses, Cavaliers and Roundheads, Wimborne has seen it all.
Fire!